We are picking up on Chaf Gimel Amud Beis. We are at the Mishnah on the second last line of the Amud. New Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah says, Hakari b'Torah lo yivchos b'shlosh psukim. Someone who's reading from the Torah is not able to read fewer than 3 psukim. Remember, that's what we've been talking about all along for the last few blot, was talking about if you would have 2 over here, and we said that if someone's going to be leaving early, so he's not going to realize that he's going to think that they started with, if he leaves early and there's only 2 psukim left, he's going to think that they're only reading 2 psukim. So we had this whole thing, we would discuss why we're so concerned about people that are leaving early and coming late, and the whole reason why is because reading 3 psukim. So, when someone's reading from the Torah, they have to read from 3 psukim. Lo yikra le'meturgaman yosmin pasuk echad, and the meturgaman cannot do more than 1 pasuk. The way that they used to do it back in the days was that they would have someone would read 1 pasuk, he would read it from the Torah, and then the meturgaman would go and translate it into Aramaic. So we're saying that he shouldn't do more than 1 pasuk because we're afraid that the meturgaman is going to get confused. Like if let's say the person reads from the Torah 2 or 3 psukim, the meturgaman is going to get confused, and we're worried about that because people learn halachos from the Torah, and if they're going to hear the meturgaman doing something and he messes it up, then they're going to get the wrong explanation. Turning to Chavdal and Aleph, and if someone's reading from the Nevi'im, then you're able to read 3 psukim at a time, and then the meturgaman can go and translate that. And the reason again is because we don't learn halacha from Nevi'im, so we're not concerned so much if the meturgaman is going to mess things up. So so you could do up to 3 psukim. How you shlosh and shlosh parashos? But if let's say you were reading from Nevi'im and it was talking about 3 different subject matters, which the Gemara is going to talk about, so then. So then you have to read 1 pasuk at a time. You're not able to read 3. Medalgim in Navi, you're able to skip from one parsha to another in Navi. Medalgim in Torah, but you're not able to skip parshios in the Torah. And how much are you able to skip when we say when you're going from one to the other? To the point where the translator would not stop, meaning we don't want the translator would stop, and while they're rolling the Torah, they would be rolling the ksuvim, right? The Nevi'im ksuvim. They used to read it from. They didn't read it from the we have the books now. They would read it from the klaf, just like they did from the Torah. So you can skip far enough that wherever you're skipping to, the meturgaman is still going to be saying over the explanation of the last pasuk. But if there's going to be silence after he finishes and they're still rolling, that's not covered at tzibur, so you can't do that. So Gemara says, Hani Gimel Psukim Keneged me. Who are these 3 Psukim Keneged? So Amar Avasi, Keneged Torah, Nevi'im Ksuvim, so Keneged Torah, Nevi'im Ksuvim. If you remember, we had a few lot ago, we said it was Keneged Kohanim, Leviim, Yisraelim. So this Mandamar just seems to be going with that it was Torah, Nevi'im Ksuvim. And we said, the Mishnah said, V'lo Yikra, L'Maturga, when Yosman Pasuk, you can't read more than 1 pasuk. U'v'navi Gimel Psukim, but he could do 3 in Nevi'im. V'im Hayi Shlosh and Shalosh Parashiyos, Korei Echad Echad. But if the Nevi'im is talking about 3 different subject matters, then he can only read 1 pasuk at a time. And the Gemara gives an example. Kigon, Kikomar. There's a pasuk in Yishai. There's a parak in Yishai which says 3 psukim in a row. Kigon, Kikomar Hashem Chinam Mimkartem is the first pasuk. Kikomar Hashem Elokim Mitzrayim Yaradim Berishon is the second pasuk, and the third one is Va'ata Malipo Nu'um Hashem. The third one is talking about again. The 3 psukim are not connected to each other. So in that situation, you would only be able to read one. The person who's reading, the meturgaman, would only be able to do 1 pasuk at a time when he's translating because it's 3 different subject matters. When it's 1 subject matter, so we think that the meturgaman is going to be able to stay on topic and he's not going to get confused and he'll be able to say the right explanation. But if it's 3 different subject matters, we're afraid that he's going to be jumping around, he's going to get confused, and he's going to say the wrong thing. Then the mission continued. You're able to skip from one section in the Nevi'im, but you're not able to skip anything from any section in the Torah. You have to read it straight. So Gemara asks, Rimini, I'll ask you a contradiction. And Yom Kippur, we say that the Baal Koreh is reading from Achremos, and then he skips to Parshas Emor. He reads to the section that says Ach Ba'asar. But he's skipping. So how did our Mishnah say here that you don't skip in Torah and you only skip in Nevi'im? And over here we see on Yom Kippur that we say that whoever's laning is supposed to read. He's supposed to go from Achremos, and he's supposed to go to Parshas Emor. So my answer says, Amar Abaye, Lokash is not a question. Kam b'chtei sheyifso kam meturgaman, the kam b'chtei sheyifso kam meturgaman. That it depends. The Mishnah is talking about it depends whether or not when the meturgaman is going to finish translating the pasuk, will the Baal Koreh for the Torah, will he be able to get to the next section? And on Yom Kippur, Achremos and Emor are close to each other, so the meturgaman Meturgaman is going to be able to, while the Meturgaman is explaining the last psukim that the Baal Koreh said, so then the Gabayim will be rolling the Torah to Parshas Emor. So Gemara asks, wait a second, that's not an answer. We learned in the Mishnah itself, the Dalgim in Navi, the Emet Dalgim in Torah. We said that you can skip in Navi and not in Torah. And then when we were explaining in Navi how far you can skip, we asked, how far can you skip in Nevi'im? As long as the Meturgaman is not going to finish speaking, and there's going to be silence while the Gabayim are still rolling the Ksuvim. So Gemara says, Mechlal b'Torah klal hulo, which is mashma that when it comes to Torah, for Torah you can't skip at all. The Mishnah, this Brisa was explaining that for Ksuvim, we said that you're allowed to skip. And it asked on when it's reading the V'im Ksuvim, how far can you skip? And we answered, only as much that the Meturgaman's not going to end up finishing, and there's going to be silence. So then, which is mashma, that when it comes to the Torah, you can't skip at all. So my answer is, Elamar Abaye, Lo kasha, kam b'inyan echad, kam b'shnei inyanim, that it depends. When do we say, if by the Torah, when we say that you're able to skip, we mean that you're only able to skip when it's speaking about the same subject. But when it's two separate subjects, then you're not able to skip anything. So to skip from, again, on Yom Kippur, it's talking about the same thing. It's talking about the halachas of Yom Kippur. So then you're able to skip, and because they're close to each other, you're able to do it. And I'll show you that is the true explanation, Vatanya, because sometimes Vatanya is like asking a question, and sometimes Vatanya is benichusa, like it's just bringing a proof. Vatanya in this situation is bringing a proof. I'll show you that that's the case, because we learned Medalgim Torah b'inyan echad, that we said in a brisa that in the Torah you could skip in one inyan, which is what we're just saying now. Uvenavi b'shnei inyanim, when it comes to Nevi'im, you could skip even in two separate things. But both cases, whether you're skipping in the Torah or whether you're skipping in Nevi'im, you are not supposed to skip long enough to the point that the translator, the Torgamon, is going to finish speaking, and they're still going to be rolling the Torah or the Nevi'im and Ksuvim. Tanya Idach, and another brisa says otherwise. That you can't skip from one section of Nevi'im to another section of Nevi'im. Of Navi shel Shnei Masar Medalg, but you could do it in Shnei Masar, which is there's 12 books in Nevi'im that are very, very short. So, and they're all put together under one cloth. So, but you can't go from the back end to the front end. Rashi says it means that you should go in order. You shouldn't be reading it out of order. Just take a look. Chinese food. So. Okay. Next Mishnah. Mishnah says, "Maftir b'navi who paris al shma." The person who would be maftir in navi, the person who would get called up to do navi, he is the one that's paris shma. If you remember, we said that paris al shma is, let's say you have 10 people who are davening and they each daven b'yechidus. They didn't daven with the minyan, and then they come to shul and they say, "Oh, look, there's 10 of us right now. Why don't we paris al shma? Why don't we say birchas kriya shma together? And we'll say the beginning of Shemona Esrei, and we'll be able to say kedusha together also." So we say that the person who gets maftir is the one that's going to be paris al shma. So you might ask me, wait a second. The maftir comes well after the time that you would be doing Birchas Kriya Shema and Shemona Esrei. So they just explained that it means that the person who would normally be turned to, like 10 guys walk in, you know who the Baal Tefillah is going to be, or like, they say who's going to do the laning. They all know the one guy that's not, if no one knows it, there's one guy that can do a better job than the other, or someone who's a regular. So the person who regularly does the maftir, he's the one that can be paris al shma, and he's the one that goes before the table, which means that he's the one that's a chazar sashatz for them to be able to do kedusha together. Who knows he has kapav, and if he's a kohen, he's able to duchen. Katan, and if he was a katan, so he says who is able to read. A katan is able to read maftir. So then his father or his rebbe would go for him. They would do one of these other things of either being paris al shma or doing kedusha or doing duchening. Katan kare b'Torah metargim. The Torah is a katan is able to read from the Torah and he's able to be a translator. Aval eina paris al shma ve'eino arlo fnei hateva. But he's not able to be paris al shma. He's not able to do that to be yotzi other people by saying the brachos of Kriya Shema, and he's not able to be a chazar sashatz to be yotzi people with that either. Vein knows he has kapav, and if he's a kohen, he's not able to duchen either. And again, just halachically, that means that a katan is not supposed to do it by himself. I can't say 100%, but I think if a katan is the only kohen that's there, he does not duchen. But a katan would duchen if there's other adults that are doing it. I'm not 100% about that. Pocheach. Let's say you have someone whose legs are uncovered, which I think means just if he's wearing shorts. So if a person is wearing shorts, although some of us say that it means that if the upper part of his body was uncovered. So if someone was wearing, but let's say that we're going that Rashi says that a person whose legs were uncovered, Paris Hashma Umitargim, he was able to do this Paris Hashma, and he's able to also be the Maturgaman. Aval Eino Kari B'Torah, he's not able to lane. Ve'eno Orel Fnei Hatev, he's not able to be the Baal Tefillah for Chazar Sashatz, for Kedusha. Ve'eno Nosi Es Kapav, he's not able to Duchen, and he's not able to Duchen. Suma, of someone who's blind, Parei Shema U'Mitargim, he's able to be Parei Shema and he's able to be Mitargaman. And you might wonder why would he not be able to. The Gemara is going to say later because the bracha is Yotzer Orav Arichoshech, and if someone's blind, they don't have an appreciation for what light is. So that's what we say. The Mishnah says that someone who's blind is able to be Parei Shema and is able to be Mitargim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol Shelo Ra Mi'aros Miyamav, someone who never saw anything in his light, ain't a Parei Shema, he's not able to be Parei Shema. Gemara says, my timer. Why is it the reason? We said that if someone is going to be doing maftir, so he gets these other kiburim that are there. So my timer, what's the reason that he gets them? Rav Papa Amar Mishum Kavod. The reason why is because we want to honor him. Because reading again, the way that it says, it's not a kavod compared to reading from the Torah. So if someone has an opportunity to read from the Torah versus reading from the Nevi'im Ksuvim, so it's not considered honorable for him because it's better to read from the Torah. So since he's being quote unquote slighted by not being able to read from the Torah, so we give him the honor of leading everyone and everything else that's going on. Rabbi Barsimi Amar Mishum Asilin Suye, that is going to come to fight with each other. Why? Because in those days it seems that the person who would be leading them in all these things would get paid. So, like nowadays they pay people who daven on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. But in those days they would pay people who were davening, during the year they'd be davening. So afraid that if one guy is going to get upset, he's going to start fighting with another because he wants to get paid also. So therefore, in order to kind of to make him feel good, so we give him we'll say we're going to give you, we're going to give you these other things to do. My benau, so what's the difference between the two explanations?
He doesn't get paid.
He does not get paid, correct.
Right. So how's that going to help the problem?
Ma'id benau, what's the difference? So Gemara says, Ika benau davi b'china, but we're talking about let's say that if the person's doing it for free. So you're right, it doesn't help. But if we're talking about a situation where the person does it for free, that's where it becomes, because if not, then you have to go on the other reason that it's not as much covered for him to be doing it. So that's what he did. Tanan, and we learned v'imhaya katan aviv v'rabush over and all the other. That if let's say the Mishnah said that if there was a katan, so then we say who was doing the maftir, then we say that his father or his rebbe are going to go before him. So iyam reb mishum netzuye. If you say that the reason why person is given maftir, is given these other things, is because he's going to fight that he's not being paid. Katan bar netzuyehu. A katan is not someone that expects to get paid. A katan can't go over and someone say, "Hey, I was davening or I was doing these things, so you should pay me." So what's it talking about? Elamai mishum kavod. It must be because of honor that because it's not as much honor to be doing the maftir versus doing the other things. So we give him the ability to be the shliach tzibur to say kedusha. So if so, katan bar kavodu is a katan someone that is worthy of honor. Either he's not going to get insulted by that. So what's the explanation? It must be that the reason why is because you have that his father and his rebbe are being honored when he's doing these things, turning to Chavtal Mavez. So same thing when it comes to money, that there's the ability to be able to pay, even though the katan is not someone that they would be paying, but the father or the rebbe would be able to get paid on his behalf, and therefore that's why we say that he's able to do these other things. Okay, we will stop here.